We believe Americans should decide American elections, period. But Donald Trump will do anything to get reelected, including violating the most basic forms of democracy. It's stunning, and it's dangerous, because it directly threatens our democracy. This is not hyperbole. It's a fact. No president in American history has ever dared to engage in such unimaginable behavior. With his words and his actions, President Trump has indicted himself by obstructing justice, refusing to comply with the congressional inquiry. He's already convicted himself. In full view of the world and the American people, Donald Trump has violated his oath of office, betrayed this nation, and committed impeachable acts. To preserve our Constitution, our democracy, our basic integrity, he should be impeached. That's not only because of what he's done. To answer whether he has committed acts of sufficient to warrant impeachment is obvious. He believes if he does something, it's legal, period. And perhaps most importantly, he believes there is nothing we can do about it. He believes he can and will get away with anything he does. We all laughed when he said he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and get away with it. It's no joke. He's shooting holes in the Constitution, and we cannot let him get away with it.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for
joining me right now, Florida Congressman and House Judiciary Committee member, Republican Matt Gaetz. Congressman, welcome back. Let me get to Biden in just a second. Let me start, first of all, with what the heck is going on with Nancy Pelosi, because she was going to have this big press conference at 6:30, and it got delayed. And then she came out and said, I just want everyone to know we're not going to take an impeachment vote, which, you know, I guess we kind of knew already. What was going on there?
Well, we Republicans have been pushing for a vote so that there are procedures, so that we know who's able to attend the hearings, who's able to present evidence, and so that we might have the same rights in defending President Trump against an improper impeachment that Democrats had when they defended Bill Clinton. We're asking for no more or no less than Bill Clinton got as far as due process, but Nancy Pelosi wants to run an unfair impeachment, and thus she doesn't want to have a vote. What I can tell you, Trish, is that over the break, many of my Democrat colleagues received phone calls from Jim Clyburn, the whip of the Democratic caucus. And so it must be that when the whip reported back to Nancy Pelosi regarding those conversations, that there was not sufficient support in the Democratic caucus to move forward with an impeachment vote. That's deeply troubling, because this impeachment is damaging our country. It's damaging our president's hand as he tries to settle global peace and as he tries to make the world a safer place. And yet Democrats aren't willing to put their own name to their own flawed impeachment investigation.
Listen, I mean, when I heard this news and we heard she was going to have this press conference, and it was quite possible that she was going to say, look, we have the votes and we're going to have a vote on impeachment, I thought, hallelujah, right? Because it feels like that's a more democratic, more fair process. And the president has already said, and we can show the viewer here, that if it's a fair process, if they actually took a vote, he'd be willing to turn over whatever he needs to turn over. Here we go.
If they vote and say you can't have lawyers, you can't ask questions, you can't have anybody present, all of these crazy things. And even some of the reporters said to me, it really is an unfair situation.
If Pelosi holds a vote on the floor on impeachment and commits to the rules of previous impeachment proceedings, you'll participate in that investigation?
Yeah, if the rules are fair, because I don't know exactly your definition. If Republicans get a fair shake.
Okay, but we've just learned from Nancy Pelosi that's actually not going to happen. So let me switch gears here with you, sir. And, you know, I understand you were kicked out of an impeachment hearing just yesterday, the Fiona Hill deposition, which is the member of the Judiciary Committee. They said that, you know, you would have, according to precedent, had the right to attend, but you got kicked out, and you're calling out Democrat Adam Schiff for this. Here we go. Well, this was you just in the moments after. Forgive me.
Why is Adam Schiff trying to run a kangaroo court? Why is he continuing to limit access to evidence, limit access even from members of Congress? So I'm deeply disappointed that as a member of the House Judiciary Committee, on behalf of my constituents, I'm unable to participate and listen to the questions and answers.
So that was you just right after. Are you still as mad?
I am. I'm deeply frustrated. I'm frustrated on behalf of our country. And I'm also a bit flummoxed because on September 12th, it was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, who launched the impeachment investigation. And now the members of our own committee aren't able to participate in the investigation that our own chairman started. And it shows that this is like watching the Keystone Cops trying to organize an impeachment process, and it erodes any confidence that the American people would have in the result. I'm an old litigator. I can tell you, Trish, that when your facts are good, you want people to see them. You want them exposed so that they can be absorbed into the factual understanding of what occurred. But here Adam Schiff's facts are terrible, and so their strategy throughout this whole process will be to keep evidence away from the American people, selectively leak information out of context to liberal news outlets, and hope that that pollutes the American public on the work of this president, work that I believe was entirely appropriate based on the reporting that you were commenting on in your opening. Hunter Biden is a person who should be investigated. Either he was conning the Americans or he was conning the Ukrainians, because he admitted that he only had the job because of his last name. So if he was leveraging that last name to give access that otherwise wouldn't have been granted, that's a betrayal of America. And if he was just taking 50 grand a month and doing nothing for the Ukrainians, well, it still makes America look bad that you've got the son of the Vice President of the United States out shaking people down for money, apparently for access that may or may not have been delivered. In either case, it's bad for our country, and Hunter Biden shows that Donald Trump's got a lot of work to do still to drain the swamp in this town.
All right. Well, thank you, Congressman Gaetz, and you're not old. Not an old litigator.
Little pencil neck Adam Schiff. Saw him today. Well, we don't really know. There could still have been some Russia collusion. Sick. These are sick people.
President Trump taking on House Intel Chair Adam Schiff over his pathetic alarmism, claiming collusion with no evidence. Schiff clashed today with members of his own committee at a hearing, and my next guest was among those demanding that Schiff resign.
I will not yield. Mr. Ambassador,
you gentlemen, yield because you just made some things about all of us that I think we all should get the opportunity to respond to.
I will not yield. You attacked me in your opening statement, and I've responded.
I have not had an opportunity to respond at all, especially to your statements of what we think. You cannot speak for us.
Expose you as having abused your position to knowingly promote false information.
I'm asking for your resignation today because I believe you are advancing Putin's work.
I do not think that conduct, criminal or not, is okay.
You're not accusing someone of getting a parking ticket or stealing a piece of bubblegum. You are accusing the president of treason.
Almost felt like the House of Commons. It got so raucous. Loved it, like the Brexit stuff. All right, joining me now, House Intel Committee member Chris Stewart and The Hill's John Solomon, who's been reporting on all of this. Congressman, let's start with you. Schiff isn't going to step down, right? I mean, that's this pie in the sky thinking. So what is the recourse here? How can the committee, which is critical to oversight, how could this committee be led by someone who has lied over and over again and using the weapon of treason and trumping a Russian agent?
Well, that's right. Laura, you're right. He's not going to step down. We never realistically anticipated that he would, but we still had a responsibility to tell him and to tell the American people the truth. And I'm disappointed that we reached this. I mean, that's not the reason that many of us are on the Intelligence Committee. There's very, very important work that we need to do. But we reached a point where we realized he was so blinded by politics, where he's ruled by emotion and not fact, and we needed to make that point. But, Laura, if I could tell you what I think is the biggest lie that he and others have told, and that is, as the clip said, they have accused the president of treason. They have accused him to aligning himself with a foreign government, not only another foreign government, our adversary for generations. This is a very serious charge, and if they really believed it, they would demand, they would work towards his impeachment. I think the biggest lie here is they don't believe it's true. They know it's not true. They don't want to start with impeachment. Well,
they don't care. Congressman, they don't care what's good for the country. This was about undoing the results of the election. And whether America had to get dragged into this 2.5-year nightmare, it didn't matter. And John Solomon, I got to tell you, Nancy Pelosi's out there today. She was throwing up the ballast for Schiff.
Sure. Yeah.
They're just plain afraid. They're afraid of the truth. They're afraid of competence. I'm so proud of the work of Chairman Adam Schiff. What is the president afraid of? I think they're just scaredy cats.
Oh, that's really high-minded rhetoric there. Scaredy cats. I'm rubber, you're glue. Thanks, Nancy.
Listen, this is spring training. This is going to get a lot hotter before it's all done. And here's the big moment it's going to happen. When that president declassifies all these documents and we see in real time what Adam Schiff was being told behind closed doors, that we can compare with what he said out front in front of the cameras, Adam Schiff's going to be feeling a lot more uncomfortable than he did today. We know multiple briefings occurred that told him no collusion, and he's out there driving that narrative. When those two documents can be compared, those two performances, I think the American public are going to be even more concerned than they are today.
Congressman, what kind of a guy is he? I've only seen him, usually trashing Trump on TV, but I've never met him. So what kind of a person is he?
Well, like most of my colleagues, you don't get elected unless you're intelligent, you're articulate, you're, I think, in some cases embracing. And he is all of those things. He is a very intelligent. He's former prosecutor. He's no fool, I'll tell you that. Which brings me to that point, and that is he's not being fooled by this. He hasn't been deceived. He knows the truth, just like you and I know the truth. The American people know the truth. He just has made a calculated political decision that he doesn't care what's true. He just hates this president so viscerally and is so offended that the American people would choose this president over his friend Hillary Clinton. He's essentially said, the American people are stupid. We're going to overturn their decision, and we're going to do it by destroying this president through lies and accusations that he knows isn't true.
Well, I mean, look, defamation laws don't apply here, but I have to take issue with how smart Schiff is. I mean, prosecutor, they went to law school, but I know a lot of lawyers aren't that smart. I'm a lawyer. There are a lot of people that you meet, just aren't that smart. And remember what happened not so long ago when a prankster called him?
Yeah.
She met with Trump and she brought him 1-hour Russian girl, celebrity Olga Buzova, who also known as a person with a strange reputation.
Olga, and how do you spell her name?
Olga Buzova.
And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
I'm sorry. Olga Buzova. I mean, John, this is one of the funnier moments in a very sad saga.
It was, and it is a sad saga. And the American people are smart enough to know, listen, 70% of Americans said in a poll today in The Hill, they trust Mueller. They're not going to trust Schiff on this continuation. I think the bigger question is, why keep extending this charade, this mirage? Right. I think they're trying to keep people away from what might really have happened. And that is Hillary Clinton's campaign, Democratic National Committee was working with a foreign power, Ukraine, to get some of their dirt on Donald Trump. That's what they don't want people to start digging into.
Oh, you're digging into it.
Absolutely.
I've been reading your reporting on that. We look forward to the next report. And by the way, our colleague Andy Napolitano said this about, well, Schiff is kind of right about mentioning some of this conspiracy stuff. Let's watch.
Congressman Schiff is correct. In that report will be evidence of the existence of a conspiracy. Not enough evidence to prove the existence beyond a reasonable doubt. Congressman Schiff wants to dwell on that. If he has other sources, he has to decide when and under what circumstances to reveal those sources.
I don't know why Andy's throwing the lifeline to Schiff there, but real quick, Congressman.
Yeah, I just don't agree. I think Mr. Barr was definitive. He didn't say, and I've made this point again and again, he didn't say he didn't reach a legal threshold, that we found evidence but we couldn't convict on it. He said we saw no evidence of conspiracy. He was very clear on this, and I think it's overly optimistic for those who oppose this president to say once again, well, we didn't find what we wanted, but we'll keep looking and we'll wait till we get the report. Who knows what that's going to say?
All right, guys. We're out of time. John, thank you so much. Congressman, thank you.
First to our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herod. She's reporting live on Capitol Hill. Catherine. Well, Trace, it's a very complex week of testimony here on Capitol Hill, and to simplify it, what you've got here are really two tracks, essentially. One is an official, traditional diplomatic track in Ukraine, and the other was a back-channel investigation led by the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. The witness who arrived today on Capitol Hill is George Kent, a current senior State Department official, and the reason Kent matters is that he was in Ukraine between 2015 and 2018, so there's overlap with the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and significantly, he worked alongside with the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who was recalled or removed early by the Trump administration. Here's Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell.
Now we have sought to interview witnesses who, may have seen this going on, and every arrow continues to point in the same direction, which corroborates what the whistleblower said, which corroborates what the president frankly said in his own words, confessing to the act.
On the way into the hearing this morning, we had Republicans who addressed reporters at the stakeout behind me, and they said that they feel that Kent is an important witness because he can talk to these corruption allegations against Burisma. This is the energy company where Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, sat on the board. Here's Congressman Lee Zeldin.
What did he know about Burisma, a corrupt foreign company? An investigation that was going on not just against Burisma, but also against a corrupt Ukrainian oligarch, Zlochevsky. That the sitting vice president's son, with no energy experience and no Ukraine experience, gets hired at $50,000 a month at least.
Kent has been behind closed doors now for about 6 hours, Trace. They are taking some breaks, but for the most part, it's been a steady hours-long deposition, Trace.
And, Catherine, even more crucial testimony lined up for this week.
That's right. With the return of Congress, they've really got key witnesses, the House Democrats, every day of the week. They have a former senior advisor to the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who is coming in. He resigned last week. They also have a witness later in the week who is part of the Defense Department who can speak to this issue of Ukraine aid. And then perhaps one of the most significant witnesses is Gordon Sondland. Gordon Sondland is the current ambassador to the European Union, and he's the one who was sending text messages defending Mr. Trump's decisions in Ukraine, saying that there was no quid pro quo, though he is being questioned by other career diplomats on that very issue. And just as a point of context, these are now being called depositions, and it may seem a little in the weeds, but the reason it matters is that a House attorney told us that depositions are more strictly controlled by those who have control of the committee, and they're not as likely to be released in the short term to the public. Trace.
Catherine Herridge live for us on Capitol Hill. Catherine, thank you.
All right, the impeachment quest is getting a big boost from the Democratic coalition's new impeachment task force, which includes, get this, celebrities. Rosie O'Donnell, Tom Arnold, Deborah Messing. I thought they said celebrities. Rosie, Deborah, Tom. I think the last hit Tom had was from a crack pipe. Just kidding, Tom. Don't sue me. I love you. So, who knows what these crusaders will come up with? But I'm sure they'll get help from Adam. Yes, Mr. Schiff, who, when seeing the real Ukraine phone call transcript, decided he better make up one of his own.
I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it. And by the way, don't call me again. I'll call you when you've done what I asked.
A reminder, that wasn't just stupid, it was false. But it was what the media wanted to hear, so Adam obliged. It makes you wonder, if Schiff can mangle a transcript with such creativity, imagine what he could do to other stuff.
And now, Adam Schiff reads nursery rhymes.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and whipped them all soundly and put them to bed. A wise course of action.
All right. So how is Trump holding up? Fine, considering there's no other man we've ever met that could have taken it.
There's no other man that we've ever met that could have taken it. It's true. Maybe I'm a little different up here, I don't know. But I enjoy it. To me, I'm energized.
And boy, is he. I mean, ask him, was Joe Biden a good vice president?
He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass.
No. Come on. Such language. You know they're going to complain that you use terrible words.
They complain sometimes I'll use a terrible word like hell. The other day I used the word hell. I got hell from... They said he used terrible language. I used the word hell. It was so bad. But you got to hear Jay-Z, the words he was using. He was using the F word all over the place. And then the next day they say, I use bad language. The word hell is a terrible word.
A reminder that Jay-Z is not president. But anyway, I get why the Dems and media are trying to destroy a presidency. You have record employment, record high median household income, prison reform, stock market highs, wars ending, troops coming home, we hope. So why wouldn't you want to ruin that? But I get it. What's a liberal to do when a Republican turns out to be better at compassion than you are? Well, if you're Adam Schiff, you keep changing the story.
And now, Adam Schiff reads nursery rhymes.
Little Jack Horner sat in the corner eating a Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, "What a good boy am I." Or was he?
Oh my God. I feel a chill up my spine. Fact is, what you're seeing is a shameless, brazen effort by the media and the Democrats to undo an election. The question remains, have they actually thought this thing through? You saw that rally, right? And you saw that energy. The more intensely the establishment media targets those people, the more street cred the Trump movement gets. And when it becomes obvious that it's Jeff Zucker, CNN, the New York Times, and Adam Schiff versus Midwesterners in red hats, who's going to end up being the hero here? It's obvious. Canceling out the votes of 60 million people will turn Trump into the most unlikely rebel leader in history. An orange cross between Gandhi, Don Rickles, and Godzilla. Right, Adam?
And now, Adam Schiff reads nursery rhymes.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Mr. Dumpty and his fondness for walls represent support of our corrupt president. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Clearly a reference to the fall of our democracy under President Trump.
So, Tom Shalhoub, Adam Schiff, everybody. So, how great is this that the left always wanted an American radical leader? Their own Fidel, their own Che. Finally, they got one, except, crap, he's a Republican. Which means, media and the Democrats, you're on the wrong side.
The radical Democrats' policies are crazy, their politicians are corrupt, their candidates are terrible, and they know they can't win an election day, so they're pursuing an illegal, invalid, and unconstitutional bullshit impeachment. I'd rather give it to you people, or I'd rather give it to something, charity. Can you imagine having Pocahontas as your president? Now, the real Pocahontas we wouldn't have minded, but the fake Pocahontas you can't have it. Or how about Sleepy Joe? His son, who knows nothing about energy, unlike the people in this room. He flies into the Ukraine. He flies into Ukraine. He walks out with $168,000 a month, $3 million. He doesn't know what a gasoline tank looks like. and they're paying him hundreds of thousands a month. Then he flies into China, and he takes out $1.5 billion. These big energy executives were sitting back. I got to tell you, I just made a great China deal today for energy, for the farmers, for the banks, for so many, technology. One of the greats. Phase one, it's a big phase. In fact, the biggest problem, it'll be $40 to $50 billion in farm purchases. I don't think our farmers can produce that much. I said, that's okay. My people said, sir, could we make it 20? I said, no, make it 50. Our farmers will buy more land, and they'll buy bigger tractors. Right? Now, they actually said, I want my farmers, I love my farmers, I want them to come back to me. Sir, we can't produce this too much. It's too much, sir. It's too much. We can't produce that much wheat and corn and all the stuff. Because I want to tell you, I got China to order a lot. And it's true. It's true. No, it's true. So China, in their record year, of course, they'll catch it within, $2. He was $2 off. He gets a Pinocchio, although Schiff got 4 Pinocchios for making up what I said on a phone call. Shifty Schiff. But their biggest year was $16 billion in aggregate. That's a lot. $16 billion, that's a lot of corn, right? $16 billion was their biggest year. They're going to buy not 16, not 20, not 30, not 40. They're going to buy between 40 and $50 billion worth of agricultural products. But they came along. I could just see nobody knows.
Problem about President Trump or his personal attorney. He's being investigated by the FBI because of the Democrats. If he's over in Ukraine saying, hey, what's going on here? What's this dirt? Where did this come from? He has every right to do that. Remember, they said that they had more than circumstantial evidence of Trump colluding with Russians. Where are the Russians? The only Russians and Ukrainians that we know of are the ones that were working directly with the Democrats. And so I just reject this whole thing. They're trying to speed to impeachment is what they're trying to do here. And they're not running a traditional impeachment.
I apologize for stepping over you. Bring it back to today's witness. Why would the White House block others from being interviewed and allow this former ambassador to do that, knowing that she's still an employee of the State Department, the U.S. government?
Well, my guess here is this is somebody that the Democrats have been coordinating with. Okay, let's not pretend that this ambassador hasn't been working with the Democrats. Okay, that's been happening. She is a Democrat. She's a partisan. It's well documented. Okay, so that's why what's being reported this morning in some circles is that the Democrats issued a soft subpoena. Okay, well, that's because she wants to be able to tell the State Department, hey, I'm going to go ahead and listen to the subpoena. So the Trump administration, what they've said in that long letter that the White House counsel put out that said, look, if you're running an impeachment investigation, we're not going to participate in this nonsense, okay, unless you're going to actually vote, have the House vote to actually have a real inquiry. But what's happening is that some partisan bureaucrats and former Obama people and Trump people are going to testify because they're working behind the scenes with the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee.
But the question is, why did the White House not stop this witness?
Well, my guess is that there's some legal reason why this witness wanted this. What I don't even know what a soft subpoena is, but wanted a subpoena. Or no, I think they called it a friendly subpoena, because I assume there's some legal way that if she's subpoenaed in some different way, she can come testify, because she wants to come and testify. This is part of their rollout. Look, they're going to leak all this out by tonight. I promise you, every mainstream media is going to have bombshell after bombshell that came out today in the hearing about how bad Trump was and how bad Giuliani was and how bad this career 30-year diplomat had all these concerns about the Trump administration and the president, Rudy Giuliani. That's what you're going to see about 12 hours from now on every single channel and newspaper across this country. Why? Because the mainstream media has been in on this from the beginning. They're trying to overturn the 2016 election. And we can go on and on. I can take the whole show. But,
okay, well, let's move to the whistleblower issue here in the final minute we have. Here's the former acting AG, Matthew Whitaker, on whether or not there's anonymity necessary in this case here. He said this.
No, you're not. You're guaranteed that you can't be retaliated against, and that's the whole idea of the whistleblower statute. But there is no reason, and I think the idea that this person wouldn't be safe, I think is sort of ridiculous. I mean, this person is making a huge allegation against the President of the United States on derivative information from a phone call. We've already seen the evidence, and I think they should have to testify and stand in front of the American people, and most importantly, the Congress, and answer these questions.
Let's see if it comes to that. The reason we bring that up, there's some reporting today suggesting the whistleblower wants to testify with written answers. Would that ever fly in an impeachment inquiry in the United States Congress?
It doesn't fly to be a whistleblower, okay? To just sit. The whistleblower already submitted his or her testimony, and it was false. Okay, because the whistleblower did not say on the form that he had actually come to Congress before. So the only people that don't know who the whistleblower are the Republicans on the committee and most Americans. All the mainstream media, they know the whistleblower. I mean, for God's sakes, the New York Times basically identified the whistleblower because they gave all the clues that you would need in order to track who the whistleblower was. So the idea that we're hiding this, that this whistleblower needs to stay in hiding for his or her protection is asinine. Nobody believes that. It's not true. If you're going to be protected, the whistleblower, and I want to make sure whistleblowers are protected, okay? But you can't just hide. You can't go to the Democrats on the committee and then later, I mean, look, a week ago they were saying that the reason that the whistleblower couldn't come forward is because Republicans were going to out the whistleblower. This is already after the New York Times outed the whistleblower. So I'm not really believing much of what the whistleblower is saying, but I can tell you this. The whistleblower has the right to come forward, but they're going to come forward in person and testify and answer all the questions like, when did you begin to coordinate with the Democrats? And that's where we'll start.
We've also seen and heard a lot from Adam Schiff, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and Mark Meadows, the congressman, has made it very clear that in the House Freedom Caucus, we spoke to Meadows yesterday, the House Freedom Caucus has said that Adam Schiff should be removed from leading this investigation. Is he capable of conducting a fair investigation, Congressman?
Well, I would start with what I was kind of getting to earlier. This is a faux investigation. This is a fake investigation. They've weaponized the House Intelligence Committee, which is supposed to be overlooking the 17 agencies, and they've turned it into this fake impeachment committee, okay, where they're keeping everything from the American people. Everything's being done in the skiff. Everything's being done behind closed doors. Nancy Pelosi controls all the people on this committee. We can't talk about supposedly what happens behind closed doors. So I just reject that premise. So what Adam Schiff and the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee should do is actually lead the committee in investigating what we actually should be looking at, which is overseeing our nation's military intelligence and domestic and our civilian intelligence programs, right? We have a lot of agencies we're supposed to be overseeing.
We can now confirm that she has arrived, so that leads us to believe that this interview, as planned, will happen.
And she being Marie Yovanovitch, she is the former ambassador to Ukraine. There was big questions, Congressman. We asked you, was she still expected to arrive? And here she is, walking through the door. She'll go through security, and she will now enter for her planned transcribed interview before members of Congress. Congressman, if you want to jump in here as we watch her arrive on Capitol Hill.
Well, yeah, and I think what you're going to see here is this is all for show, right? This is part of the show trial. It's, is she going to come? Is she not going to come? Okay, and that really harms us because we can't get all of our members from all over the country back to question the witness. Now, we're going to have really good members there. Mark Meadows is going to be there. Jim Jordan's going to be there. Scott Perry's going to be there. So we're going to be ready to ask her the questions. But I will just tell you, you mark my words, there will be leaks within the next few hours where she's going to have bombshells. And by tonight on the news, there's going to be all the little sound bites that she's been working on and planning and coordinating they'll be reported on here this evening. And this is all to drive and build the narrative towards impeachment.
Yovanovitch was. You know, there were reports last week that Trey Gowdy, the former South Carolina congressman, was going to be joining the president's legal team to head up the impeachment inquiry in the House. We have learned that Trey Gowdy is not going to join the president's legal team in the immediate future, but still holding that out for possibly some months down the road. Fox News has been told, according to sources, that 10 days ago, Gowdy was invited to join White House staff to be the point person on impeachment, but turned down that offer for family reasons. Gowdy had a lunch with the president last Tuesday. The offer was then made for him to join as outside counsel, which he could have done, except that his job would have been to try to influence the decision-making progress in Congress, go on TV, talk to lawmakers, etc., and congressional rules prohibit former members from taking on jobs like that for a year after they leave. So Gowdy told the president's team that out of an abundance of caution, he could not take the job until January the 4th. At the moment, he still is slated to join the president's team on January the 4th. However, a lot could happen, Trace, as we know, between now and then, so it's still a little bit up in the air. But at the moment, Gowdy is not representing the president. Yeah, an eternity in politics. John, there's been some criticism over a parody video this weekend. What do you know? Yeah, this is a video that was doctored. It takes a scene from a movie called Kingsman: The Secret Service, which stars Colin Firth, and it's a scene in a church where Colin Firth starts shooting people. Well, what the people who doctored the video did was they superimposed the president's face on the character of Colin Firth, and then over the people that Firth was shooting in this movie scene, they superimposed the logos of many news organizations, also the faces of many of the president's political opponents. Now, the video was shown at a conference held by the pro-Trump group American Priority at his Doral property over the weekend. In a tweet, the press secretary Stephanie Grisham denouncing the video, tweeting, quote, "The video played over the weekend that President Donald Trump has not yet seen. He will see it shortly, but based upon everything he has heard, he strongly condemns this video." The White House Correspondents Association also condemned the video in the strongest terms in a statement. White House Correspondents Association President Jonathan Karl saying, quote, "We have previously told the president his rhetoric could incite violence. Now we call on him and everybody associated with this conference to denounce this video and affirm that violence has no place in our society." That video was produced by a group called the Geeks Team, a website, Meme World, to which the Geeks Team contributes, said the video, quote, "is clearly satirical and the violence depicted is metaphoric. No reasonable person would believe that this video was a call to action or an endorsement of violence towards the media." Carpe Donktum, which owns Meme World, was briefly suspended from Twitter, but it's now back up. In a statement, American Priority said the video was not sanctioned by the conference. They didn't know it was playing, and that the first time they became aware of it was when they were contacted by the New York Times, which first reported on this. The New York Times, which they point out, did not report on an anti-violence panel that was held at the conference. American Priority saying in a statement, quote, "We find it shocking that the New York Times would not report on any of the sanctioned events in the article, including our panel conversation literally condemning political violence while claiming to be upset over a meme that was not sanctioned, shown on stage, or approved." This is the second time that a doctored video has featured the president. There was the other one from a World Wrestling video that superimposed the logo of CNN over somebody that the president tackled. But this one, Trace, goes much further than that. Yeah, a lot of reaction. John Roberts live for us on the North Lawn. John, thank you.
Here's tonight's headline: Boot and rally. After booting U.S. troops from northern Syria, leaving our Kurdish allies to fend for themselves after a Turkish invasion, President Trump did what he always does when facing a bad news cycle. He rallies. It wasn't just the bipartisan fallout from Trump's inexplicable Syria blunder creating bad headlines for the president. There were also a handful of court defeats, the resignation of his acting Homeland Security chief, damning testimony from his ousted Ukraine ambassador. Nothing a good old-fashioned hootenanny can't solve. Trump let all his rage out at the second of two rallies in as many days. Warning, the president's about to use foul language, so you might want to earmuff your kids.
The radical Democrats' policies are crazy, their politicians are corrupt, their candidates are terrible, and they know they can't win an election day, so they're pursuing an illegal, invalid, and unconstitutional bullshit impeachment.
If he sounds Nixonian, it's because things are getting downright Watergatey. Multiple arrests, leaked text messages, alarm bells from inside the White House, and more to come next week. The House will hear from Trump's former Russia advisor, his Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, the Counselor of State Department, and perhaps most significantly, Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, he of the infamous "call me" text. But much like Nixon, Trump is doing his best to obstruct all that, taking the unprecedented step of freezing out a co-equal branch of government in a temper tantrum letter to Speaker Pelosi, basically saying, with no legal footing, that the White House will not be complying with congressional subpoena power. When it comes to Congress and the separation of powers, Trump is not a fan. Congress, in his view, is meddlesome, annoying, and, well, it just gets in the way. Recall, after a Republican-controlled Congress, he hates those too, refused to appropriate funds for his border wall, he said, screw it, I'll just take the money they already approved for the military and reroute it to the wall. Yesterday, a federal judge in Texas ruled that that move was unlawful. Trump went around Congress to sell $8 billion in arms to Saudi Arabia after Congress voted against it, exploiting a loophole in federal law. He threatened to strike Iran without congressional approval. The House passed legislation barring him from doing that, but it went on to die in the Senate. And then, of course, there's the blatant rejection of Congress's constitutional authority that got us here, the Ukraine aid, the reason we're talking about all of this. Trump put a hold on funds approved for Ukraine by a bipartisan Congress, funds that were greenlit by State Department officials, and he never gave a reason for delaying those funds. Of course, a transcript of a phone call with the president of Ukraine, during which our president, asked for a favor, has given lots of sane people an idea. Okay, here's the deal. Trump has gotten away with bypassing Congress and ignoring our separation of powers, and that's because Republicans have largely let him. Congress is supposed to be a check on the executive. It's supposed to have the power of the purse. And it's supposed to require permission for the authorization of military force. And on nearly every count, Trump has essentially said to Congress, you people are irrelevant. Promising elected lawmakers now that he will stonewall their investigation, telling subpoenaed witnesses not to testify or cooperate. He'll keep doing it as long as he knows he'll get away with it. But when will Republican members of Congress, elected to be a check on the executive, to control the purse, and to play a leading role in matters of war, when will they decide to take their jobs back? We'll wait here. Congress returns this week. Here to talk about what they'll do about Trump's obstruction is Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Congresswoman, you've been saying we need to let this process play out, follow the facts. How do you do that, though, when the White House is stonewalling?
So, good evening, Essie. It's good to talk to you. The fact of the matter is that one of the reasons that I was reluctant this summer to come out was because how divided this country is. And the point at which I came out was when a whistleblower had filed a complaint. A President Trump Inspector General had found that the complaint was credible, urgent, and of danger to our national security. We have to be very transparent about this as this is happening, and we have to make sure that the American people understand why we're doing it. They can't believe that we're throwing the kitchen sink at them or that this is a witch hunt. They have to understand, like we do, that the rule of law is the glue that holds us together as a nation, that nobody's above the law, that my job, when I take that oath of office, is to protect our democracy and our Constitution, and that's what we're doing right now. Following the facts, getting the facts. And by the way, we got lots of speculation. We still don't have all the facts.
Right. So do you believe that Trump stonewalling and trying to keep you from getting all of the facts, do you think that amounts to obstruction?
I think it doesn't help. I think that he is looking and asking for a contempt of Congress, though you're seeing some of the witnesses come forward after they are subpoenaed. I keep going back to when I was young, and I really was in high school, early college, working for Senator Robert Griffin, a Republican senator from Michigan. And I flew back with him the day that he called Richard Nixon and told him that he needed to resign. And up until that moment, he had been with him. I was lucky enough, my family knew President Ford. I remembered what it was like back then. And suddenly they heard the tapes and they knew that he had lied. And I think that that's why getting the facts right now, being slow, deliberative, making sure that we're getting them and that people we do have to worry about our national security. I'm someone that thinks a classified setting is probably the appropriate place for some of these briefings. But what can be made public should be made public. And, you know, I want to get back and talk to my colleagues, Republican and Democrats. Because, by the way, this shouldn't be partisan. This is about us as Americans, and we're fighting for our American democracy. We all need to be looking at this as Americans, not partisans.
So Speaker Pelosi had a call with the caucus yesterday. What did she say about next steps or strategies?
You know, I think the Speaker has tried very hard. We've been home for 2 weeks while the committees have been doing the work that they had to do because of the Jewish holidays. She has kept people abreast, the 3 committee chairmen that have been, Chairman Schiff, who's been doing these classified briefings, but assisted by Chairman Engel and Chairman Cummings, have been talking about the work that's been done. She, too, is being very deliberative and she wants people to know what's happening, talking about the other issues. Yesterday, there was some discussion of Syria. But when we get back next week, Chairman Schiff stepped out of the hearing and was still hearing from the witness yesterday just to make sure that he was talking to his colleagues. But I think all of them are still in the data collection process, concerned by what they're hearing, concerned by this refusing to talk to us. These are 3 equal branches of government. The president can keep trying to blow us off, but that's not how our Constitution's written.
Well, I know you want to be deliberative, and Nancy Pelosi wants to be deliberative. The committees want to be deliberative, but Nancy Pelosi also does not want this to drag on.
It can't
forever. And so how do you balance the need to get all the facts where Trump is stonewalling, but also not wanting this to carry on through to the election?
Well, I think he himself is going to decide part of if the White House refuses to cooperate. You're seeing subpoenas. Some people are choosing to come forward voluntarily. I think the next few weeks, as people are being careful and deliberative, we'll see where this is going, and where this path goes will probably be determined November, December, which is what I think should happen, because the constant making this go on forever tears us apart as a country. And I think we all need to be worried about, you know, one of the things I want to know, and I may never know because this is in a classified setting, was Russia part of this whole Ukraine deal? Did Putin, there are lots of rumors and I know nothing. So let me say that really clear to everybody. I don't know anything. But, you know, this week we've gotten reports from other intelligence agencies of other countries about how Russia's trying to destabilize democracies in Europe and Western Europe. We know they're trying to do it to us. You know what? We all need to, not Republicans or Democrats. In this country who love our democracy isn't something you take for granted. We have to work to protect it every day. And that's what I'm focused on right now.
Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is CNN, the most trusted